The Wrong Crib, A Broken Law. My name is Mara Kessler, and I've been human for 32 years. Well, close enough that the lie holds. The adoption papers say I was left on the front steps of St. Jude's in Edmonton when I was a day old, wrapped in a wool blanket with no note. No one ever questioned it. Humans love a clean story, so that's what they got. A childhood of scraped knees and homework, university loans and experiences, and a job at the public library's conservation lab. I married Ben Kessler because he brings me coffee without needing to ask how I take it, and because he held my hand for all 20 hours of Luma's labor without once looking away. Luma is 6 months old today. She has fists like starfish and copperthread hair, the exact shade my mother had in the few memories I have of her, that the court didn't strip out of my head when they traded me. Back there, the village women used to braid rowan berries into girls' hair to keep the tithe stealers away. Here, I use a knit hat from the farmer's market. It had worked so far. I had buried the other life deep down inside me. Changelings are supposed to do that, to forget. We're meant to dissolve into human society. The glamour we're born with thins out if you live human long enough. Eat the food, pay their taxes, love them and act like them. I did all four. I almost forgot the sound the hollow hills make at dusk. Almost. Last Tuesday at 2:17 a.m., while Ben was on night shift at the E.L. Smith water treatment plant, the monitor on my nightstand crackled. Not the thin, familiar squall that means Luma had kicked off her sleep sack. This was wet, a sound like silk being pulled through mud, slow and deliberate. The hallway was cold. The air in Luma's room was colder. There were 3 of them. They stood in the wedge of light from the moon-facing window. Thin as cattails, with joints that bent half a degree wrong. Their eyes were open, but the nightlight's glow passed through them and laid clean on the wall behind. The tallest one cradled Luma. She wasn't crying. She was studying it, the way she studies the mobile Ben hung like she was memorizing something for later. The second one knelt on the carpet. It was unwrapping a bundle of gray cloth. The thing inside was the size of my daughter. Its skin was the dull white of birch bark, and its mouth was already full of teeth. Needle teeth. They were too big for its face. The third one saw me first. It turned its head without moving its shoulders. "She sleeps deep," it said. Its voice was the sound of leaves sticking together after rain. Mortals do. They didn't smell the iron in my wedding ring. They didn't notice that my shadow had stopped matching my feet the second I crossed the threshold. They'd come for a human house. They didn't realize they'd walked into a changeling's. Rule 1, never let them know you know. So I did what any human mother would do. I screamed. It tore out of me, raw and ugly and perfect. The kneeling one flinched. The bundle fell from its hands and hit the carpet. It landed with a damp, heavy thud. No inhale, no exhale, just dead weight. "Get out of my house," I said. I made my hands shake. I let my knees buckle half an inch. I had to sell it. The tall one smiled, showing all of its needle teeth. "The tithe is due," it said. "One of yours for one of ours. The old bargain stands. The alder kings have woken, and the roads are hungry." It adjusted its grip on Luma. My daughter blinked, slow. "This one will be happier under the hill. She'll run with the dusk and never be bound." I stepped forward. Every instinct from both lives screamed at me to lunge, to tear. I kept my hands at my sides. "Please," I whispered. "She's my baby. She's all I have." They like the begging. It confirms the story they walked in expecting. The kneeling one retrieved the bundle, the false child. As it lifted the thing, its features ran like wax. The glamour was learning. A birthmark bloomed on its left ankle, the exact map of Luma's. The cowlick at its crown turned the same direction. In 60 seconds, even Ben would kiss its forehead and never know. That's when I remembered Rule 2, iron remembers, even when you do not. 3 steps to the hall, 8 steps to the kitchen. The cast iron pan Ben's grandmother gave us hung from the pot rack. 10 pounds of Alberta-forged iron, seasoned with 30 years of Sunday eggs. My car keys were in the ceramic dish by the door. My wedding band was on my finger. I'd spent decades surrounding myself with the only thing that could hurt them, because some part of me had never stopped preparing. I bolted. Not away from Luma. Through them. The third one swiped. Its nails scored the back of my nightgown and the skin beneath. Cold bloomed along the cuts, the kind of cold that isn't temperature. Its absence. I didn't stop. The kitchen light was off. I didn't need it. I knew where everything was. My hand closed around the pan's handle. The weight of it sang up my arm. When I turned, I let the glamour slip. Not all the way, just enough. My shadow hit the floor and kept going, joints double jointed, fingers too long. My eyes didn't reflect the stove light, they absorbed it. The kitchen smelled suddenly of wet moss and struck flint. The cut on my back stopped bleeding and started to itch with something green. The tall one froze. The glamour on its face flickered. For a second I saw what it really was, something carved from driftwood and spite, wearing my daughter like a stole. "You," it said. The word was recognition and accusation. "Me," I said. My voice had an undertone now, a hum that made the window glass shiver. "You're poaching." The kneeling one hissed. "The changeling for a changeling, that is the law." It held up the false Luma. The thing's eyes opened. They were my eyes, the ones I'd had before St. Jude's. "You forsook the court, you are meat, you are mortal, you have no claim." I set my feet, the linoleum creaked. "She's my daughter," I said. "That's the only claim the world respects." They moved together. It wasn't a fight. It was weather. The air in the kitchen thickened. The fridge magnets slid off and hit the floor one by one. Every piece of silverware in the drawer rang against its neighbors. The false baby opened its mouth, and the sound that came out was Luma's hungry cry, perfect in pitch, wrong in cadence. I swung the pan. It connected with the tall one's shoulder. The impact sounded like a tree limb breaking in an ice storm. The smell of burnt sugar and ozone filled the room. The thing dropped Luma. I didn't think, I moved. I caught my daughter against my chest with my left arm and kept swinging with my right. The third one came up under my guard. Its teeth went for my throat. I got my forearm in the way. It bit down. I remember thinking dimly that I'd need a tetanus shot. Human thoughts, anchor thoughts. I shoved the wedding ring into its eye. Iron doesn't need to be a blade. It just needs to be. The thing screamed, sounding like bats leaving a cave. The windows iced over from the inside, fractal patterns racing across the glass. The false baby on the floor started to unravel. The glamour peeled back, and what was underneath was mushrooms and bones and a bundle of stolen breath. It reached for Luma's foot. I stomped it. The same way you stomp a spider. The same way you end anything that tries to take your child. It broke with a sound like a rotten log giving way. Light leaked out of it and died on the tile. Luma was wailing now. Real sound. Human sound, furious and alive and loud enough to shake the glamour out of the air. The tall one reeled back, its driftwood face splitting. "The court will hear of this," it said. The words bubbled. The iron was working through it. "You broke the bargain." "Your bargain doesn't matter right now," I said. I was breathing hard. Blood ran down my arm and dripped onto Luma's sleep sack. She didn't care. She had my hair fisted in her hand and she wasn't letting go. "You tried to tithe from a tithe. That's not a bargain, that's theft." The three of them looked at each other. Something passed between them. A calculation. The court doesn't like losses, but it likes scandal more. A changeling who kept her claim. A changeling who remembered. They'd have to explain that. The tall one spat on the floor. The spit smoked. "Keep her, then," it said. "See how long she stays yours." They went out the back door. They didn't open it. They passed through it, and the wood groaned. I watched their footprints cross the yard. Wet, deep prints in the February snow. They went straight to the fence line where the rowan tree stands. The one Ben planted when we moved in because he liked the berries. The prints stopped there. They don't cross rowan. They don't cross iron. They don't cross mothers who remember. I dropped the pan and it cracked the tile. I didn't care. My knees finally gave out and I slid down the cabinet to the floor. Luma's cries hiccuped down to sobs, then to that shaky breathing babies do after they've been scared. I checked her. 10 fingers. 10 toes, birthmark, cowlick. The faint smell of baby shampoo and the other smell underneath, the one that was mine, crushed leaves, running water, wilderness. The cut on my back had already closed. The bite on my arm was puckered and white. It would scar. Human scars? I could explain those. Ben came home at 6:04 in the morning. The sun was a gray suggestion behind the clouds. He found me in the rocking chair in Luma's room. The window was cracked from the cold. The kitchen smelled like a lightning strike. I was asleep with Luma on my chest, and we were both breathing. That night, he didn't ask about the pan. He didn't ask about the footprints that started at our back door and ended at the rowan tree. He made tea. He put a bandage on my arm. He simply checked every lock twice and held us until Luma woke up wanting breakfast. When he did ask, I told him I had a nightmare about a break-in, that I must have sleepwalked. And the cracked window had to be from the house shifting and settling. Humans need stories that fit inside their world. Ben needs me to be safe more than he needs me to be honest. I can give him that. That weekend, we planted 3 more rowan trees along the fence. I told Ben they were good for the soil. I sewed iron filings into the seams of Luma's favorite teddy bear. I replaced the back door and made sure the new kick plate was steel. I kept the dented pan. It hangs by the stove again. Tonight Luma is 7 months old. She's teething. She's laughing at the dog. She grabbed my face this morning and babbled something that sounded like the old language, the one they speak under the hill. Then she blew a raspberry and went back to chewing her toy. After she's down, I stand at her window. The streetlights make halos in the cold. The rowan branches are bare, but they're there. I'm just a mom in a hoodie watching the yard. My shadow is the right size again. My eyes are brown. My wedding ring is on my finger. But sometimes, when the wind comes from the north and the river makes that specific sound against the ice, I let my glamour slip for half a second. Just enough to send a message into the dark. The Hollow Hills remember me. They know whose daughter they tried to take. They know what happens when you poach from a changeling who built a life and a family and a wall of iron and rowan around both. Some bargains only get broken once. The rest get enforced. Luma will ask questions someday. All children do. When she asks why the trees turn toward her, or why she dreams of running on 4 legs, or why her shadow sometimes lags behind, I'll have an answer. I'll tell her the truth, that she's mine, that she's human, that she's more. That the world is bigger than the court, and that her mother is very, very good at remembering. And if they ever come back, they'll find we've added more iron to the house. If you would like to know what happens next, then follow the page, like this video, and comment for a part 2.